We're into the offseason in Major League Soccer, well, at least for two Canadian club sides, Toronto FC and CF Montreal, and the latter is being quick, making some important decisions. One being squad decisions. Some players have been re-signed, others released entirely, and they've taken the interim tag off of Marco Donadel. He's going to remain with the club as their permanent head coach. Donadel, his record, not great after taking over early in the spring. 35 games under his belt. CF Montreal went 8 wins, 10 draws, 17 losses, 49 goals scored, 69 conceded. That averages less than a point per game, and that includes being dumped out of the Canadian Championship this season by Forge FC. Does this decision to keep Donadel on board make sense for you, Oliver Platt? Is there anything that we can learn or gauge from the decision to keep him on board?
I think it makes sense to a degree to not have another off-season where you're looking for a new head coach. I think Marco Donadel still has plenty to prove, but this feels less like an endorsement of what he's done so far and more like we don't want to deal with this right now, to be honest. We want to keep some consistency in the head coach position and focus on what we need to focus on, which I agree is what they need to focus on, which is improving this roster, which, to be fair to Marco Donadel, was just not good enough this season. Like there were such big holes at key positions that it was really difficult to judge, the job the manager is doing. The biggest one for me being in central midfields, where they just literally did not have central midfielders, in terms of sufficient numbers on the roster. They started the season, obviously Saliba departed, that left them with Piet and Laturi. They brought in Longstaff, but in terms of natural central midfield players, that's it. Like it's very difficult to compete when a key position is that light on depth and not of the required quality as well, in my opinion. So I like that they've made some more decisive moves, it feels like, this offseason in terms of their roster decisions so far. Vrioni was a disaster. They've let him go, or obviously just couldn't get healthy. I don't think Bryce Duke really did it for me, to be honest with you. I think he flattered to deceive a lot of the time, as talented as he may be. Didn't really produce for CF Montreal. He's gone as well. So it looks like there's going to be some more substantial changes, and there needs to be. And we'll judge Marco Donadel, I think, on what he gets out of a new look squad early next season.
I think having some consistency and maybe the whole club culture bit. Obviously, Donadel playing for CF Montreal from 2015 to 2018. I think that, to Ollie's point, that probably helps the fact that you're getting someone that knows the club, knows the city, and has a clear identity, how you want to move things forward. But you can give the best coach in the world. If you don't have a balanced side, I mean, you're falling short every year, 10 times out of 10. So I think it's about rebuilding that roster and making sure it's a balanced team within CF Montreal. And there's been so much negative activity, you could maybe say, with CF Montreal this season, that I think it's hard for a new manager to come in and really change anything. So maybe gamble on the one that you have and try to build from there. So we'll see how CF Montreal do for 2026.
Okay, can I take the other side of the coin here? Because it just seems like CF Montreal are treading water. Yeah. Just as a club. They announced they're going to do a rebuild. Okay, what's this rebuild going to look like? How invested are you, just in terms of dollars and cents, in doing that? And is this manager one that's going to transform this club? I saw nothing that would suggest that much. I don't even know if I saw incremental improvement over the course of the year. And there's a lot of decent young players that are still involved with this club. I think it's important that you get the right manager and then stick with them. This is a case of just out of a level of just, we want a little bit of consistency. Finally, a club that has had anything but consistency in terms of their managers over the years. Why start now? Why start with him? It doesn't make a lot of sense for me. And largely the club has had a decent eye for finding, kind of managers that have some really good ideas in how to take the club forward. There's just nothing that seems, cutting edge, transformational to me about keeping him on board. I think it's important to make the announcement right away, and I do give them credit for that. But to what end? That's what and I have these questions about the club really top to bottom right now. Am I being too harsh in saying that? There's nothing about Donadel that absolutely turned me off, just in terms of the football that they tried to play or they did. But I'm having a hard time seeing him as the guy that's going to navigate CF Montreal to a brighter future here, Ollie.
My question would be, you could bring in another bright young coach, which Montreal have, made an effort to identify. Laurent Courtois was regarded as that, right? And if you're putting him in a position at the start of next season where probably the roster's probably still not going to be great after one off season, do you want to attach, a bad start, the stink of that, to a new coach? Or do you want to say for Donadel, we're going to give you a bit of extended time. We're going to give you a chance to prove yourself with hopefully a better roster, but then also kind of keep the bullet in your pocket in terms of making that managerial change when you maybe are a bit closer to competing in terms of the quality of the roster. I just don't know if now is the time to bring someone in when it's just, again, it's back to square one in terms of where they're at this offseason.
But get to okay, looking at San Diego, an expansion team. I know the argument's being made in Major League Soccer that it's easy to start from scratch rather than dealing with a bunch of liabilities in order to rebuild your side. But this is a league that I think there was 5 or 6 top teams in this league and a lot of just average teams. And it's not as if Montreal has significant contractual overhead that is acting like an anchor around them. No, they have a lot of young players on not really big contracts, and they do have flexibility to go out there and do it. I'd rather hit the ground running rather than go into next season and be like, oh, this is still going to really take some time. It's a different story than their main competitor in Toronto FC and what they were saddled with to start last season, where they had anchors contractually everywhere. I just don't see that being the case with the CF Montreal side. And there's been a little bit of a clear out in terms of the rebuild being announced, that it was starting midway through the season, and players have left the club. And I think that there is a little bit of an ability to start fresh in terms of a lot of the players and the identity that they have. I just, if you're gonna buy into a rebuild, then go, blow it up. Just do it now. Do all the renovations at once. So
do they have the luxury of doing that though? Because they're not going to go out and sign 3 DPs this offseason. I think they almost have to do it the slow way, the way they operate.
Nothing's stopping them. Nothing's stopping them from doing that except for themselves. Okay, so
I know, but realistically, it's not going to happen, right? So they've maybe not got as many anchors as TFC had, but what do they actually have on the roster? They've got the guy on loan from Porto until June, so that's a short-term thing unless they decide to extend it. Again, I'm just not foreseeing them going out and splashing the cash to really strengthen the roster in the short term. I think this is going to be a slow build, and I think that's the choice they've made about the way they're going to operate. And I'm not saying you have to like it, but I think it's the reality.
See, and the thing is with players like Bryce Duke, I would question with any young player, Jordan, and you've been there and played with a lot of good young players before, if they're not put in a position to succeed with the balance of experience and other talent around them, then oftentimes that talent goes to waste. Yeah, and that's kind of that's kind of the story that I feel about that. And I do think that there is some young talent with promise on this team still in this squad that I just don't want to see that case repeat itself yet again.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say about that is when the young players in the team, the ones that have a bright future, have to be the ones to lead the team, it doesn't often end well. You still need those 2 or 3 key veterans. That they don't have to be the oldest player on the team, but just someone who's been there and can just steady the ship, and who these young players can look to at training and be like, okay, this is who I want to emulate. Or when chaos happens throughout a match, they're the voices that you hear that kind of just calm the storm. So I agree. But Ollie, you're so right in terms of the slow build. You don't see CF Montreal coming out and spending a lot of cash to rebuild and fix things. That's just not the CF Montreal way. No. It'd be nice, but that's not how they do things.
Just really quick, Duke, I know it hasn't worked out, but I don't think that would be a talent I would give up on quite yet. They gave up on Caden Clark, during the season. Giving up Duke now, I'm not sure that's a great look. Alvarez, I've always liked the player. Had an off year, but he was in and out of the team. It really didn't make sense because 2 years ago, I thought he was really solid. So there's still big decisions to make, but work, especially in the midfield, is required. And just a final note, guys, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add. I do give them credit that they made these decisions right out of the gate. So they hit the offseason running. That's essential here. They need to get moving. This is a league where you can't be left behind. There's going to be buzz. I know they're on a different level, but FC Supra coming into the mix, an alternative for a lot of fans who are disgruntled by the direction of the club. So I think they're now in a position where they need to get moving and quick.
Agreed.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, it may be a different level, different league, but I think if FC Supra come in and build around local players and put a competitive product on the pitch, people are going to find that more appealing than bottom feeding in MLS pretty quickly, right? So that undoubtedly, I think, puts some pressure on them to start moving their way up the table.
We'll deal with Toronto FC and the offseason ahead for the Reds later on in the week.